Welcome, it's Friday and it's time to get fascinating. I don't actually have anyone in class, so this is all for recording, and I hope that you can follow along. Hopefully I remember to guide you, but if I forget to talk, please just use that as a cue to dive deeper into what you're feeling, sensing your tissues, and feeling that fascinating relief. So let's start. Hopefully you have a rolling tool. If you don't, I highly advise getting something like our tool that we're going to use right now, which is called the Fascianator, and you can find those at www.thefascianator.com. They're a harder tool, which is basically, they're simply designed. It's just a hard tool with no bumps or bells or whistles, and it gives you all of the sensation that you would like and maybe would not like to feel, and gives you a ton of feedback for your experience. I like using the tool because it feels like a deep tissue massage. As a body worker myself, I get massaged 2 times a month, every other week, and I use that as maintenance for myself and for me to care for my body, as well as for me to be on the table so that I can feel the sensations that I give to others while I'm working on them. So it's a great way for me to reconnect to my body as well as take care of my tool, which is my body. So in between those massages, I like to spend time on my Fascianator, taking care of my own tissues. And I get to decide how long I stay in an area, how much pressure I use, which fibers I'm working, and I also get to control that experience so that I get to sink deeper into the internal issues that might be attached to those physical issues. So using the sensations that I'm feeling while I'm rolling on the Fascianator to process any emotions that I've been storing in my tissues, in my fascia, in my full body web. And so that magical combination of the work that I'm doing with the roller, as well as the work that I'm doing in my mind and in my emotions and in my heart, really take my self-care to another level. So while we're working, whenever you're watching this video, while you're working and while I'm guiding you through the work, please listen to those sensations that you're feeling and let them guide you. So if I take you into a position and it's you're not feeling it, roll around until you find one that makes sense to you and makes sense to your tissues and makes sense to your self-care. So you're using your senses, your feelers, your proprioception and your interoception to feel into your healing. So you're bringing the two together rather than just having someone provide the sensation and then expect that work to, come to fruition and healing. You are the master of your healing, and you are taking yourself through the process of feeling and then taking that process deeper into healing. So grab your rolling tool, grab some water, because we're going to squeeze you out like a soppy rag, and for us here in the Carson City area, like a smoky rag. We're getting a lot of the smoke from the California fires, unfortunately, that are still going. So we've been inhaling a lot of smoke. I myself am an athlete, so I've been trying to stick with my workouts, but not trying to breathe too heavy so that I'm not inhaling a lot of smoke. But regardless of what you're doing, you're inhaling anything that's in the air, those pollutants, and that, especially for us, that smoke is getting into our cells and I personally have just a tiny bit of a headache and am really sleepy, sluggish, and so I'm going to use our Fascianating today as a way to wring out my kind of dirty tissues, if you want to call it that, and squeeze out that wastewater so that I have room and I have the space in my body to suck up good fresh water. So along with your rolling tool, grab a cup of water, drink a little right now. I'm gonna go grab mine, and then we will get started. So join me over on your mat. And let's get fascinating. I'm gonna grab my water real quick. Take off my fuzzy slippers. And let's get going. Get your water, get your rolling tool. And we will get started. Well, I like to start on my hands and knees just because it's a nice place to wake up my body, and because I use my hands so much, I like to start with my hands. So I'm going to start with my hands. I'm just on all fours, somewhere comfortable, either in your home or in your studio like me. And I'm just putting the edges of my hands on the edges of the roller, and I'm rolling from the pinky pad to the thumb pad, that squishy part of your palm on the roller, rolling back and forth. I can use the edge of the roller to roll in between each finger, squeezing all of the work that I've done this week out of my hands. I am back to taking massage clients. I have a full schedule again, so back to work feels definitely in my tissues. I feel it building up, so it's nice to be able to release it with you every Friday. I hope that you join me next Friday. And I hope that maybe you find this video helpful for when you cannot join me in person or in virtual land. So after you roll all of your fingers, we'll take it down into a nice stretch into that child's pose, rolling my forearms. And then I can sit back on my heels, rolling forward and back in that child's pose, getting my forearms, starting to work my shoulders. I'm getting a stretch down my back at the same time. And again, feel free if the positions I guide you towards feel extra good and you want to stay there longer. If you'd like to just sit in this pose, taking a few breaths, feeling the body open up to your work, feel the mind quiet down and hopefully be right here and nowhere else. Hopefully you've turned off your phone, turned off the TV, maybe turned off the kids. If there were an option for that, I'm sure you would take it. And most likely if you're at home, you have some pets around you, so they're natural rollers. They do it all the time, so they might join you and maybe even show you a few things. So we're rolling the forearms, taking that moment in that child's pose stretch. And then we're going to move our fascinator into a position in our child's pose again. This time I'm going to take that roller, I'm going to put it into the crease of my knees, and then I'm just going to gently, very gently sit back so I can get a little stretch and a little compression right there at the top of my calves. I'm sitting down and I'm wiggling just a little bit. Now I'm not putting my full weight back. That could be very painful, and if you have any calf or knee issues, maybe this one is one to skip, but if you'd like to try it, just a little bit of pressure, not my full body weight, not my big booty weight, but just enough to kind of explore the area. Maybe both the calf and the hamstring at the same time is a little you know, shocking to the body, but the sensations are good. They bring change, which is always happening, and this time it's something you're controlling, so explore. There's no right or wrong here. There's just exploring. Feeling into your tissues. You bring that fascinator all the way down to my feet, if you can sit on your feet like I can, or if not, maybe you're just leaning back and rocking back and forth onto those feet. And then we'll move that fascinator to the side, give ourselves a little bit of a stretch, feeling our body warming up. And then I'm going to take myself into a deep stretch so I can feel those calves in that down dog position, giving myself a chance to kind of feel that tissue I just visited. And I might just walk my hands and feet together. Do a quick little forward fold stretch, shake out the head and the neck. This is a great time to just investigate how the whole body is feeling. And as I roll up, I'm going to give myself a little bit of love all over, up and down. This will give me a chance to work my feet. So we just started with the hands. We gave our calves a little wake-up call. And now we're going to roll the feet. So I'm going to stand in front of my rolling tool. Maybe it's a fasciator, maybe it's something else, whatever you've got. Stand with your feet square with the shoulders. Actually, I'm going to come square with the camera. You're going to stand up nice and straight, placing one foot on your roller. Again, nice and tall, and you're just going to lean forward, placing your pressure into your foot straight down into that fascinator or your roller, and then rolling from just behind the toe joints to just in front of the heel. So here I am, standing up nice and tall, and then leaning forward, rolling into my foot. I'll give you another angle. See myself standing nice and tall. Let's go all the way perpendicular to the camera so you can see me leaning forward from my ankle into the foot, rolling forward. Maybe there's a few moments there that you might want to slow down and then rolling back. So this is for you to explore your tissues. Maybe they bring with them some issues that you might be dealing with. Maybe you have plantar fasciitis. Maybe you have cramping in your feet, lots of cramping, or maybe you just have weak arches and your feet get really tired. This is a great way to put a little spring back in your step by rolling your feet for, a good couple of minutes, maybe even every day. I can take my knee inward towards midline, rolling the inside edge of my foot. Go straight down the middle. And I can lean my knee slightly outward to roll the outer edge. So once again, I'll give you another visual. Inward, down the inside edge of the arch, straight forward, from front of the foot to the back, and then externally rotated to get the outer edge of that foot. Now you can play around here all over the place. Again, feel free to explore your own tissues. Sometimes I even rotate my body so that I'm on the opposite side and I can roll the top of my foot. You can even bring it over to the wall and maybe even face the wall to get a little more balance here. Elbows can go on the wall. It's almost like I'm in a half plank position or a forearm plank position. This gives me a lot more leverage. I can even take it all the way up, balancing, giving myself some super pressure on those super feet. And then maybe I even want to take that wall and do a little balancing, walking back and forth on my roller. Now, since we've rolled that one foot for a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to walk around. Feel the difference between that rolled foot, the fascinating foot, and the other foot. This one feels very fascinating. It feels fabulous and marshmallowy. Nice and light and fluffy. And then this one feels just a little bit heavier, My ankle rotates more smoothly, and so this foot is jealous. Let's do that other foot. Finding space in that other foot by placing the left one. Now I'm using my left foot on the fasciator, on the roller, leaning forward and rolling from the back of the toes to the front of the heel. Now, it's very likely that while you're doing this, you're looking at your foot. As you're looking at your foot, lift your heart away from that foot so you're standing up nice and tall. You can still look at your foot, but maybe use your eyes more than your body. Standing up nice and straight gives you better leverage, gives you better balance, and it gives you a better sense of good posture. So as we roll the foot, we feel that connection from our foot all the way up to the top of our head, including our intention in the heart and our nice, strong, and supportive upper torso and spine. Exhaling, don't forget to breathe. Inhaling and really letting ourselves feel all the feels and the sensations. Knee in if you want, rolling that inside edge of your foot a few times, and then rolling the outer edge of your foot as well. So while you're here, while you're experiencing that tissue release in your foot, you might be feeling some sensations elsewhere, in the calf or in the thigh, in the hips, all the way up, maybe even into your neck. Why is that? Why are we feeling things in the rest of our body when we're actually working things in our foot? That's because your fascia is a continuous web of connective tissue that runs from head to toe, inside and out, 360 degrees. It interweaves everything together, and it's one of our main sensory organs. So while you're working your foot, it's sending little like electrical signals all over the body. So that's a very special thing, and it's a very important thing, and it's a very good thing when you take care of it. Taking care of our fascia takes care of our whole body. It's a full body relief, just like a massage. You're gonna feel great after we're done. You're gonna feel great right now. Doesn't that foot feel great right now? I hear a lot of sighs in class, a lot of, oh yes, finally getting some relief. Just think, what if you did that every day? What if you did that every other day? Instead of waiting every 2 weeks for your massage, like me, or maybe even once a month for your massage. Maybe even once every couple of months for a massage. In our day, in our conditions right now, we need to do this more often. So I might turn and face away from the fasciator, roll the top of my foot for a few. Just a little bit. There's not a whole lot of meat there, but there's still fascia. There's always fascial connections all over your body, even where you think they might not be. They are. And then maybe I'll turn around and use my half plank position to get a little more leverage, just to do what we did on the other side. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and walk around, even turning my foot perpendicular, getting that transverse arch of my toes. So now my foot is 1 foot parallel with the roller, 1 foot perpendicular. I'm kind of hanging 10 as if I were on a surfboard, toes over the edge of the fasciator, and I'm just working that joint, or those joints from big toe to little toe, that transverse arch. That was really important if you're a runner, or if you just like to walk with no pain. You know, everybody has a transverse arch. Everybody kind of needs it. So we should be needing it. Need your needs. So that transverse arch on the other foot. Oh, that feels so good. And then I can come off my roller, walk around, feel my fresh feet. And then we can come down to the floor. If you want, I really like this stretch, just as a nice transition, our child's pose stretch. I can feel the release of my feet working its way all the way up the backs of my legs, into my back, and all the way up to my neck. I'm gonna sit back onto my bum, and put the fasciator or your roller, whatever you're working with, underneath my calves. I'm leaning against the wall because I like to save my hands. Like I said, I work, I'm a massage therapist. I use my hands a lot. I'm also an athlete, so I'm constantly up and down off of the ground, and I did a lot of yoga this morning. So my wrists are, you know, they're tired. They'd rather just relax. And so I can do that while I lean back on a wall or a couch or something sturdy. And then I can just work my calves without really thinking about my upper body posture, even though I'm keeping that intention in mind to keep a nice posture the whole time. I don't have to work at it, which is very nice while I work my calf. So I'm going to take one calf on the roller, midway up the calf, so it's at the fattest part of your calf, or the fleshiest part of your calf, the strongest part of your calf, and I'm going to work my leg back and forth. So actually I'm rotating it side to side and feeling all the lumps and bumps along the way. All of the ropey tissue of that calf, my very strong calves. Everybody's usually got strong calves. They're very important for walking and for doing all the things that we do upright. And they're also very important for recycling the lymph in our body. If we're a mover, if we're doing our best to move our lymph, our waste removal, and our nutrient liquid that flows through us, sorry, I'm losing my words, should recycle every 2 days. Now, if we're sedentary or if we've got a lot of junk in the air, that might slow down. So when we roll our calves, not only are we giving ourselves a good tissue squeeze, we're also helping that waste removal process. So removing waste from the body leaves room for better nutrients, and which overall helps our immune system. So not only do we feel better, we're actually feeling better. We actually can feel better more often. So I'm just rotating my ankle on the fasciator while I press into that roller on my calf, just to stretch those fibers and maybe give myself more dynamic feeling. So I can also lift my tush, roll up and down the roller. Woo! And just like we did with the foot, we can roll the inside of the calf. Oh boy, right up there by the top of the calf before you get to the back of the knee is a zinger. When you get into those more sensitive areas, can you work with ease? Can you not try too hard is what I'm saying. So don't force yourself into releasing that tissue. Be curious, observe those sensations, be kind, and work with a bit of ease. So you're still working, you're still putting a little effort into it, but you're not forcing yourself into it and not forcing your tissues to change. You're allowing them and you're building them and you're giving them everything they need to change, but you're not forcing them to change. We could spend all day on just one calf, but we're not going to. We're going to put the other calf back on the roller, do a little comparison. Ooh, yeah, this right one definitely feels more juicy. Could definitely use some more work, but since we're kind of on a time limit, we'll save that for another day. So we'll use the other calf. I'm going to start going back and forth. This one's got a big lump in it. I don't know if you can see it, but it goes boom. And you probably have a few of your own, so you don't need to go watch me. You can watch yourself. You can watch your own leg go boom as you roll over those guitar strings. Maybe they even make some noise. Are you playing a tune? Mine's bluegrass. Maybe yours is heavy metal. I don't know. But as we work our way up and down that calf, I can just lift the tush just a little bit. When I do that, I want to use strong arms, keeping my shoulders and my upper body away from my ears as I lift. And then I'm using the wall. I'm using my elbows on the wall so that I don't have so much pressure on my arms. Like I said, I'm kind of tired today. So I'm, using what I have to support myself. There's no cheating when it comes to working your body. There's no wrong way really to do this. other than forcing yourself to, you know, release when you're not ready. That's not okay. But otherwise, anything that you can come up with to make this work for you is great. Just remember, you're releasing tension. So if you're building tension somewhere else while you're doing your work, what are you doing? So let's work with ease, work with our breath, inhaling and exhaling, and then taking that purpose into our tissues and being gentle enough that we're not forcing them to release, but we're giving them the environment that they need to release. We're squeezing out that water. And if you've ever squeezed out a rag, you know if you do it lightly, you're still gonna have water and yuck in it. So you gotta kind of squeeze it out with some firmness. That's what we're doing here. We're just squeezing out our tissues. The fascia, that full body webbing that we mentioned before, is like, you know, your water collector. So as we squeeze it out, we're pushing waste water out, and that creates a vacuum for fresh water to come back in. So as we squeeze that water out, fresh water comes back in. So let's put both calves back on the roller, give a little comparison. Do they feel clean? Do they feel rinsed out? Hopefully they feel good. Roll those ankles around. I'm snapping and cracking like crazy because things are moving and flowing, and we will move on. So, coming away from the wall, maybe rolling the hands again. I always like to give my hands a little relief after using them a lot like we did. And now we're going to work the outer edge of the calf. So we were just working pretty much the back edge so that you can access from behind. And now we'll work the side. So I'm going to come to that sideline position. The roller will start in that mid foreleg area. If you have any hip issues, you might want a pillow underneath your hip bone. And you're going to stack both legs on top of each other. Your knees are stacked and they're going to press downward towards the mat as you support yourself on that lower arm. Feet are going to pull towards the chest as you roll up and down the outside of your calf. Now, if your knees point up, you're going to roll back towards the back of your calf. So try to keep them pointing down so you can roll towards the front of your calf, that anterior tibialis, the anterior compartment of your foreleg, your calves. And please take that roller all the way up to just underneath the knee so you can get that delicious release up at the top of that calf. So rotating forward and back to feel all of that tissue on the side of the foreleg. And if you want, maybe you want to bring your hips up off of the floor. So you might bring your foot forward, lift up, and then you can roll up and down the side of your foreleg. If you want, both legs can stay stacked, and you can get a ton of pressure on that foreleg as you lift, and roll up and down. And when I feel those major woo feels, I'm gonna exhale. And remember, I'm not creating tension anywhere else in my body, so really relaxing the face and the jaw. There's another way to get this position that I really like, and it's working in a pigeon pose from yoga. So hands in front of the roller. I lift my knee towards the fasciator, and then I just gently put that foreleg down on the roller. In this position, I can sit my hip to the side, and now I can start working the upper leg as well. Or I just stay in that crossed leg position, rolling up and down the foreleg. Change position so you have a better view. Here I am in my pigeon pose, rolling up and down the foreleg, being cautious of that leg shin bone. Nobody likes to get kicked in the shin bone. You certainly don't want to roll over it with the fasciator. So keeping that angle on your fasciator in your body so that you're working tissue and not bone. Can't roll bone any softer. You don't want soft bone. You want soft tissues. So taking this position in its extreme or staying in that basic gentle position, rolling up and down the foreleg. Beautiful. All right, let's switch sides. Let's do the other one. So starting in our sideline position, forelegs are on the roller, knees pressed down towards the mat, knees are stacked, heels are stacked, shoulders stacked over the elbow, belly button is strong, but not working too hard. Remember, we're not forcing ourselves, and this should be somewhat of a relaxing practice. You are working, it's like yoga. You're working, but you're also working on keeping your mind soft, your thoughts quiet, and your breath in and out. So, oh, this one's tight. Yeah, so your spots might not be the same as mine, but I betcha you probably have some tenderness on this calf. Really, everybody does, because, I mean, you walk and you sit, and when you're walking, they're active, and when you're sitting, they're not. So they're constantly being asked to do and not do, and then maybe not being taken care of for their effort. So as we take care of our tissues, especially if we do it more often, we come to this relationship where when we take care of our tissues take care of us. Oh, what a concept. If our body feels good, maybe we feel good. When we need our body needs us. Or our body needs us to need it. So that's what we're doing. We're getting needy. We're staying fluid. And we're really facilitating our own well-being. Did you know? Ooh, that's quite tender. That if you roll your whole body about every 3 days, you're going to help that immune process multiple times over. So finding that pigeon pose, if you'd like, taking it into a different way to hit those outer calf muscles, maybe even just a little bit up and down the IT band. So taking care of your tissues helps you take care of your full body health, which boosts your immunity, right? Let's take a child's pose stretch. Oh. Those lower legs are nice and fasciated. They should feel really open in this child pose stretch. Might feel different than when we started. And since we did the forelegs, let's do the forearms as well. Let's roll up and down the flexors. So basically just rolling forward onto the forearms. You can do both at once, or you can do one at a time. If you want to do one at a time, you can use that other arm for a little extra pressure. That's nice. And when I say nice, it's full of feel. So, you know, nice might not be the word you choose. It's just not forced. Remember, we're not forcing our tissues to release. We're guiding them and asking them nicely. And we're providing them the environment that they need to change. We're filling them up with fresh fluid, which, you know, just like when you wash your body, it's easier to get clean when you have fresh water. If you're using dirty water, it's harder to get clean. So your body is definitely wanting that fresh water to clean its spaces. Now let's do the extensors by, let's see, I'll turn this way. You're going to turn your palm away from you. Your pinky is facing your nose. Your thumb is facing away. And your palm is facing opposite to your face. So you're looking at the back of your hand. And then you're going to bring your hand down to the fasciator. Your shoulders also coming down. And then I'm going to place my top hand on that forearm, keeping that thumb pointing down. Now I'm looking at my palm. And I'm rolling up the forearm. I think I found my week's worth of work right there at the top of my forearm, just below the elbow. Ooh. I'm going to sit on that spot. and allow it to kind of pulse a little bit, not too much. I don't feel any electrical zinging or any major pain. It's just, wow, those are some feels. So as I sit here and allow that tissue to soak up that hydration, I'm getting a little bit deeper into that tissue. Our fascia is our postural organ, and our postural organ works really hard to keep us in that posture. So it's not going to let us take ourselves out of that posture without a little bit of time and a little bit of patience. So if you do have a spot like this, like I do over my forearm, that's sending me some signals, I'm going to take my time, breathe into it, and maybe give it a little bit more time to release rather than rolling away from it right away. So yes, we are rolling our tissues, but sometimes you need to stop rolling and just sink into that release. So yes, it's a rolling tool. It works really well to move it, but compression works really well as well. So just let yourself sink into that release. I'm going to do the other arm. Thumb is pointing at me. Now I'm going to turn it away and turn my pinky towards my face. We're going to bring the shoulder and the forearm down to the fasciator, place my other hand on top, and I'm going to roll towards the elbow. My hips are stacked over my knees. Another view. Hips are stacked over the knees, and I am pressing my hand into that bottom hand, using the weight of my body and the weight of my upper hand and my upper arm to sink into that tissue. Now again, right at the top of my forearm, right near the elbow crease, another group of feels has come to make their complaints, and they're all lining up. And they've got some pretty valid complaints. So I will be listening, and I will do my best to attend to all of their needs with a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and we'll work together to find some solutions. And isn't that what we need these days? It's just a few deep breaths and a lot of working together, a lot of patience to find some solutions to help us change for the better. That's really all we're doing. Again, there's no right or wrong here. We're just working together to feel better, which means we might need to try a lot of things before we find the actual solution. This is a solution to a lot of things. And it's not going to be a one-time pill. This is something that needs maintenance, just like your body. So let's work together to keep it better. So let's go into our upper legs now. We'll take that seated position on the fasciator. Let's see, what's my best angle? I'm going to sit right on it. Actually, this is probably better. Sit so that it's right underneath your butt, and then lift yourself up, actually, maybe starting halfway up the thigh. Strong arms behind you, and again, if you want, you can use that wall or your chair or your couch, and you're just going to roll up and down the thigh. So this one can be difficult if you can't lift yourself up off of the floor, but you can also just take one leg at a time, lean back into your comfortable space, and then just rotate your legs side to side. And then move the fasciator, rotate the legs side to side again, and then keep moving it up and down. So you don't actually have to lift your butt and roll. You can rotate, you can rock instead of rolling. I wanna rock and roll. So I'm gonna take it into that rolling position, supporting myself with my upper arms, peeling myself back, rolling myself forward. This actually is a little bit of an abdominal exercise, using your back and abdominals to scooch you along. You can also do it one-legged, so you can use that kickstand of the other foot, rolling up and down. So my lifting leg helps me roll up and down on that rolling leg. So strong arms behind, belly button is squeezing in to support us, and we're rolling up and down the hamstring. Now, if I do one leg, which is really helpful, not just for the balance, but also to get deeper into that tissue, I can turn my leg out and roll up the outside of the thigh, turn the toes up to the ceiling, roll down the middle, or turn my toes inward and roll the inner thigh, the inner hamstring. There's a group of hamstrings, that's why they call them strings, hamstrings. It's not like they're gonna play you a symphony. Unless they're torn, then they're definitely playing you a symphony of sadness. But the strings, the hamstrings, part of the strings means that there's a bunch of different fibers, and technically they're grouped into 3 different muscles. So feeling those hamstrings up and down the back of the leg, turning the toe in or out to find different areas of that group of muscles. Okay. We'll be done with those hamstrings now. We're going to sit on the roller to do our gluteus maximus. We'll do the glutes now by sitting one cheek on the roller, kind of side saddle-ish, and then I can roll from just above my leg bone, and the way I check that is to put my knee up and down. When I wave my knee like this, I can feel my leg bone right below the fasciator, moving and not hitting the fasciator. That's how I know I'm not rolling over my upper leg bone, my large trochanter, my upper trochanter of my femur. And then I'm gonna roll up to the upper part of my hip. So right where my hip bone reaches the low back. I'm gonna work that whole side of my cheek. And meanwhile, my arms are behind me, strong and stable, or I can come down onto that forearm, leaning a little bit more towards the side that I'm rolling. And I'm gonna take that lower leg, the same leg that's connected to the butt cheek that I'm rolling. Maybe I'll take it up onto my knee for a stretch and compression. This is a sports massage term to stretch and compress. We use that a lot. I will push down on a muscle and then move your leg or move your limb. And that gives that same feeling, that compression. And then as I roll down, I'm giving a little bit of a squeeze. And while my knee is up in space, it's stretched. So we're doing the same thing, that stretch and compression, compression and stretch. And then as I maneuver around on that cheek, rocking side to side, finding all the fibers and all the feels, and letting go of my breath. Remembering to stay in that breath the whole time we're working, because when we lose our breath, we're usually working too hard. And if we're working too hard, we're basically working too hard. It's a good rule for life. If you're working too hard, you're just working too hard, which might not be working your best. In my line of work and in my play, I like to work smarter and not harder. So I try to remember not to force, to release the tension in my neck and in between my ears, and work for health and not just to work hard. So giving that cheek one more squeeze, my loving squeeze in my tush. And I'm actually going to drop that bottom leg down, the same leg that's attached to my roller. Bring my elbow down, and I'm going to slide down a little bit so that that fasciator is right at the top of my hip. It's right in that, I don't want to say saddlebag area, but the outer edge of the hip, right where your hip bone is. My hip bone's right here, so I can only roll forward so much until I feel that hip bone. And then as I roll back, I'm on that upper, or that medial glute, as well as the TFL, which attaches to the IT band that runs down the side of the leg. So this spot, I'm not rolling up and down, I'm rocking forward and rocking back. So I'm rocking instead of rolling here. Staying supported and stacked in that upper shoulder, belly button is squeezing to stay strong in that torso, and I'm rocking forward and back. And then because we're here, we worked the muscle at the top of the IT band, we might give it just a little bit of love. You know, we did some of that in that pigeon pose, and that's the pose I prefer to do my IT band rolling, but we're here. So let's just do it a little bit. I'm gonna put my top leg in front for that kickstand, and I'm gonna keep my weight centered in my feet and my hands while I roll up and down the side of my leg. You know, again, this can be quite painful, especially on a harder roller, but I've gotten it worked out so much from all of my other work that it doesn't actually feel too bad. And then once again, if I prefer, I can just move into that pigeon pose and take it sideline. So what happens to this IT band when we're rolling it perpendicularly is that pressure goes right into that band that runs from the knee, the hip to the knee. So your perpendicular pressure is quite intense. When we go pigeon style, we go parallel pressure and just roll up onto it. That's softer pressure. It can be a lot more appealing, and maybe you'll roll your IT band more often. And if I just line my leg up parallel with the roller, I come from behind the IT band rolling upwards. Maybe it spits out my roller, maybe it doesn't. But honestly, it's a great release, and it's a technique I use on my massages where I squeeze that tissue up and try to get a little bit of room in between that band of tissue and your muscles. So let's go to the other side of our tush. Rolling the glute. Oh, this one's got some things to say, some feels to tell me all of the stories. And that's hopefully what your tissues are doing too. They're telling you all the stories that they've been storing along the way. So our connective tissue, that fascia, it doesn't just connect things, it connects us. It connects us to our emotions, it connects us to our sensations. So really, it is a communication organ. So not only does it, connect the parts, it helps them talk to each other. And then it helps those parts talk to our command center, our nervous system, and our brain, and our gut. So as we get more connected to that connective tissue, we're actually getting more connected to all of the connections in between and all of the things that we've been storing along the way. So along with that now time connection, your tissues have also collected a bunch of connections from the past. So it has past time connections, and maybe even it has maybe even started to make connections forward. So future connections. So the worry and the thinking forward and planning and feeling those feels before things even happen, those connections are actually also stored in your fascia and in your body. So the work that we're doing isn't just to take care of the tissues, it's really helping us undo some of those issues. So especially right here, especially in the butt, where we store a lot of tension, where some of us might be, starting a career being a tight ass, that stuff is real. That stuff, you feel, if you feel it, it's real to you. So as you feel those things and as you work through those things, we release some of those things. So sometimes our work creates emotional uprisings in our bodies. So right here where we hold a lot of tension, when you're controlling things and you just squeeze, keep things tight, keep things up in there, right? So that squeezing and that tension that we've created from all those emotions and all those things that we've been feeling, when those things release, sometimes we feel that again. So please, if you feel any emotions or if you feel any of those releases, take some time to rest, maybe journal, and don't blame yourself. You can blame me. It's fine. I won't take offense. But basically, your body is just trying to process those things again. So beware if you have some emotional things come up after our practice, that they will work themselves out, and hopefully you'll have a chance to work through them and maybe let some of them go. Maybe they won't all let go. So I've moved myself into my IT band release now. My rolling leg is straight, my top leg is in front, and I'm just rocking myself back and forth. Now, if you've noticed, I'm leaning my head away. I'm getting a nice stretch in my neck at the same time. Remember that full body connection that we were talking about? Yeah, so this is part of it. So my hip, as I roll that IT band, I'm also releasing some stuff in my neck because they are connected. They might look far away. My hip is down here, my shoulder's up here, but this is a unit. This whole body is connected. So they're not really that far away. And it's not really that surprising that they're connected, especially when we start diving deeper into that network of webbing that has been built over the past 45 years of my life. Lots of things I do create this connection in between. So I'm not really surprised that there's some things going on in between the two. And there, my neck just shifted. Beautiful. And of course, while we're here, we'll lift that bottom hip up, roll the fasciator down, and gently roll up and down that IT band. I'm keeping a lot of pressure in that, a lot of my weight in my front leg and in my upper body. And then if I roll backwards, it's a little bit more pressure. If I roll forward, I'm coming onto that quadricep and that front thigh, so it's a little less pressure on that IT band. And then I'm just going to take it into that pigeon pose again, because that sideline position IT band release is just a little less intense. So my leg is parallel. Oh, I got that bottom edge of that IT band, and I'm rolling gently up towards the thigh. Whew, that parallel pressure is so nice. It's not as intense, but it's a little bit more IT band tissue on there. So I don't think actually it's not less intense, it's just different intense. Less pain, more release. Yeah. So I'm basically not even moving much. I'm just kind of putting that compression back on that IT band. And then I'm gonna slide down. Whew, beauty. All right. So we've managed to work our way up the back of the legs. We've got the hips. So it's time to do the inner thighs, and then we'll get those quads, which is a bunch of screaming. So exciting stuff. I'm going to put the roller in between my legs. I'm going to come down to all fours and then send one leg behind me as I land on that roller mid-thigh. And I'm going to roll from the mid-thigh to the groin, keeping that knee bent to start. Rolling up to the groin and then back to the knee. Now I'm going to lift my heel a little bit, feel that rolling on the inside edge of the thigh. Woo-hoo! And I'm going to roll up and down. Yum, 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 yum. This is always surprising. The inner thighs, you know, they're constantly working. We just don't really give them the credit, nor do we do that, you know, many exercises that focus on the inner thigh, but they're always working. They help us in our seated position. They help us in our standing position. They help us not have to go to the bathroom every 3 seconds. And when you do have to go to the bathroom, they help you get to the bathroom before you start going. So these are important muscles. Rolling your inner thighs can actually help with incontinence. It can help with any pain in the low back that you have, in the hips, and a lot of times it can just help relieve the whole low back and upper body area. Surprise, surprise, your inner thighs are a key to your health. They also help flush the lymph from the lower body. It's a big network of lymph vessels right in that inguinal area, right at the hip crease. So as we roll up and down the inner thigh, we're helping that process flushing out the waste, making room for the fresh stuff. Now I'm going to spend a little time at the knee, lifting my heel and lowering it. I'm right on the attachments of the hamstrings and the inner thighs, the adductors, even a quadricep muscle. So it could be a little bit screamy, but I'm not forcing it, and I'm keeping my breath gentle and kind. And I'm allowing my body to get right to that edge. And body work, we have this scale. I was given this scale by my first massage instructor, Bob Oliver, one of my favorite gurus and mentors. And he gave us the pain scale, 1 being no pain, 10 being exquisitely painful, which means it hurts so good. So we take it just to that hurts so good level, breathe into it, find a little space around that intense, exquisitely painful sensation, and then we ease away from it. So exploring that inner thigh for just a few more moments, lifting and lowering the heel, feeling that dynamic shift on the compression, and then making sure that our upper body is supported. My elbows are underneath my shoulders, my belly button is squeezing to my spine, and I'm going to come all the way up to the groin for just a second. I'm gonna lay my head down, and I'm just gonna rest here. Putting that compression on that upper thigh, I feel a little pulsing, so I'm gonna maneuver around so I don't feel that pulsing anymore. And I'm just giving it a rest. And I'm gonna roll up and away. I'm gonna shift through child's pose just to take a moment in that stretch. Things are starting to feel way different than they were when we started. And I'm gonna come up and switch sides. So placing the roller in between my knees. Now my right leg is gonna go back straight and my left leg will be on the fasciator. So finding that position and then rolling up into the groin and then back to the knee. So now you can see here in this position, my elbows are underneath my shoulders, my belly button pulling to my spine. I'm keeping my head and neck relaxed, maybe even propping it up on my fingers, and keeping my breath soft and my mind quiet. As best I can, letting those sensations come up through my tissues and into my sacred heart space so that I can recycle them, attend to them, and then let them go. This is also an area that can help release a lot of emotions again. The inner thigh, of course, and its significance of keeping our legs together, keeping things together, keeping ourselves upright and, proper. So as we get into this tissue, maybe some of those issues have come up for you. Maybe you need to slow down. And again, I remind you that if any of these positions don't feel right for you, maybe exploring another version, modifying it so that it feels right for you and you're not collecting tension as we release it. It's like cleaning out the attic. There's really no wrong way to do it. It's just a lot of work, and you kind of have to just dig in. So dig into your own tissues, dig into cleaning out your attic of collection of feels, your collection of connections that you've made along the way. Now I'm also going to lift and lower the knee. I can extend the leg as well. That changes it just a little bit. Like in my bar class. We extend and bend, and that changes the tissue recruitment. And now we're going to spend some time at the knee area, lifting and lowering, extending and bending, and then working our way out and up to the groin. And here I will rest for just a few moments while I feel that lymph flush through the hip. And I just take a moment to breathe into my release. And I will exhale, pull myself out of that position and release back into a child's pose. Now my hips are sitting down and my heels so nicely. Feel a shift in the upper body. And now the exciting one that you've all come to see, our quadriceps. Now, this is always painful. I don't know of any person in any of my classes who's not felt the quadriceps with great emphasis, let's say. So you can do one at a time, but generally starting with 2 legs on the roller is a little bit easier. It spreads out the pressure. So we're just going to start with our hips, the fasciator just below our pubic bone. And then both legs are on the roller, and you can start by just rocking yourself up and down a little bit. In this position, my elbows should be underneath my shoulders, and I'm going to kind of army crawl forward, which means my belly button needs to pull into my spine so I'm not sway back, and I'm strong in my support, and I'm just going to crawl forward. Maybe stopping along the way, keeping those toes, how your legs naturally land on the roller. Maybe they're in, maybe they're out. It doesn't really matter. We'll get all of the feels. And I'm going to roll up and down the leg. My feet naturally turn out. All my years swimming and dance, and just that's how they naturally fall. But if your feet turn in, you're working the outside of your thighs. One's not better than the other. They just feel different. And starting in that natural position helps you stay in that a little bit less tense version of this. So you're not forcing it, and never forcing it. Just allowing yourself to feel as you heal. And I'm doing a little bit of rocking and rolling. And I'm going to come back to the hips. I'm going to turn my toes down. I have to kind of shift my legs so that those toes turn down. Keeping them turned down, I'm going to roll the very front part of my quads, which they're not happy right now. Breathing, breathing, breathing. One of my legs has a knot at the top of my right quad, but my left quad is quiet, so they feel different. For any of you who spend any time working on your legs, working on your lower torso, you know that they don't always behave the same. And whatever issues you've built up in your years, you know, each step is different. So those fibers and those connections are slightly different. And as we roll over them, we really see the difference. Now I'm going to come back to the hips, turn the toes in, and this means I really have to wiggle around so that my thighs turn in. I'm going to keep those toes turned in, and I'm going to roll, oh, this one's the tough one, up the thighs. And if I find any places along the way that just need my attention and my breath, I'm going to quiet down, exhaling, inhaling, as I roll up and down the thigh. Now, a great way to change this up is to bend the knees And try that again. Now your quads are stretched. And now as I get into the middle, I'm gonna kind of just let my heels rock side to side. This can be quite intense, but you're used to it by now, right? So taking that breath up and down into your thighs, into your mind, and always remaining in that intention to not force the issue or not force the tissues. And let's sit back, find that child's pose. Oh yeah. Pretty much rolled the whole lower body. We're gonna hit one more in this lower body section, and that's our hip flexors. So I want you to imagine your hip bones and the top of your, or the bottom of your sternum, right in between your ribs, and then your pubic bone. That's your diamond, it's your abdominal diamond. And we're gonna work from the hip bone to the other corner of your diamond. So we're gonna put that fascinator inside the right hip. This is my right hip. And it's gonna go below the top point of your abdominal diamond, but above that other hip point. So you can stay here and just roll with your hands in that area. You can lay on your back, keeping your knees bent as you take the edge of your roller into that hip area. Or you can bring yourself onto the floor, facing down. Again, I'm gonna put that edge of my fascinator, edge of my roller on the inside edge of my hip. So this hip will go straight. I'll come this way. So my right leg will go straight. I'm gonna put that edge right underneath my hip flexor, right underneath right inside of my hip bone. And then I'm gonna lay down on that fascinator. And this is one that I'm not really rolling. I may rock a little bit, but a really good way to get deeper is to lift that attached heel up and then wave it side to side. Now you don't even have to do anything. You just lay here. And if your rolling tool feels a little hard, you can also maybe get a ball, maybe a tennis ball or a softball, or one of our bodywork belly balls. And here I'm just gonna let my body kind of release over that edge of the roller. This one is where we can get quiet, not really move a lot, and just let that area tell you a story. Tell you its story of how it helps your low back, helps your leg muscles move, your hip flexors, bring your knee into your chest, so they're your gait muscles. They're also your low back supporter. They're also one of the most deep muscles in your body. So they're connected to nearly everything, and they're a major messenger. They're so as, you know, it doesn't just move your legs, and it doesn't just help you stay upright. It collects messages from the whole body. It's one of your core muscles, which means it's attached to the core of you. So it's attached to the deep feelings of you. So the messages that you might be receiving may seem deeper than, oh, I was walking here and there, I was sitting here and there. No, these are messages of, I felt this, and I feared that, and I just need this, and I don't need that. And so they're very primal, very, very strong internal urges. So as we work this area, there's a lot that might be coming up. And so maybe you might need to stay here for longer. I wouldn't go longer than 5 minutes or so, maybe 10. But again, you cannot work your whole body out in an hour and a half. I mean, it's taken me 45 years to get this way, so I certainly am not going to release it all in an hour and a half. So don't force yourself, but just accept where you are and accept the healing work that we're doing for what it is, which is just a little bit of healing. It's not all the healing. So let's pull ourselves away from that fascinator, back into our child pose, which is also called wisdom pose for a very good reason. Curling into this fetal position. Again, we're connecting to that deep level of sensation. And then we can do our other side. Once again, maybe you're working from this kneeling position, maybe you're on your back. There's even a position where you can lean into it if you want, using it as a bit more of a leverage position. Please be cautious here. You can stir up some stuff. I like the version where we're down on the floor. The working leg is extended back behind me. I'm going to put that fascinator right in front of my hip flexor, right in front of my hip bone, and then I'm going to lean forward, adjust it a little bit so the edge is snuggled into the inside of that hip bone. And then I'm just going to drape myself over the fascinator. Again, here's the position where your breath is really doing a lot of the work. So as you inhale, melting yourself around that exhale. And then if I want a little bit more leverage, maybe bringing that heel up and then waving it side to side. Finding more fibers, more connection. And then just listening to the story my tissues have to tell. This really is part of the most, okay, so what was I trying to say is the work that we're doing here, because we're doing it for ourselves, our agenda, you come to whatever you're doing with whatever agenda that you have, but one of the main things that we should try to do in our work here is really connect and feel all of the sensations that we're being given or we're feeling in our body without judgment. So an observational awareness where you can observe what you're feeling, and in those moments of observation, be detached enough to see them for messages and not emotions. So when we emote, we feel things and then we start to make more connections. But when we observe those feelings, then we start to kind of look at them from a different perspective, and we have an opportunity to say, yeah, that I think I'll hold on to that one, or no, I'd like to get rid of that one. So basically you're cleaning out your email box, let's say, which, by the way, I should do. Now that I think about it, if I'm going to spend an hour and a half rolling my tissues, which I'd much rather do than clean out my email box, I should probably clean out my email box at some point. So again, that's a great analogy, because like, how often do you clean out your email box? And you know you should, but you don't. That's the same thing with fascinating. You know you should, but sometimes we don't. So give yourself a reason to do this, which is your intention, which is to feel better and to get better at feeling. So let's move that foot around a little bit. Getting ready to come out of our big release. Tuck the chin, lift the hips, and sit back into that child pose. So now that we've done nearly all of our lower body, feels great. Let's maybe take a break and get some water. It's already been almost an hour and a half. We have to do our upper body. So taking that water in helps us process all the stuff that we're releasing from that lower body. I feel so different than when we started. So maybe getting back into that feeling body. I'm going to take a stretch, forward fold, feel the legs nice and juicy. And then I'm going to come down to all fours, laying onto one side. So I'm going to lay onto my left side. I'm going to put that fasciator into my armpit. I'm going to prop my head up to start. My legs can be bent or straight. It's up to you. I like to start them bent. It's a more comfortable position. And my roller's underneath my shoulder. I prop my head and my hand to start, just to take the tension out of my neck. And then I can start leaning back and leaning forward, rolling over the lat and the upper triceps and a little bit into the external rotators of the shoulder, the rotators. And then if I can, maybe I'll let my head drop down to my shoulder. And here, again, this is connected to the other side of my neck. So I'm getting a deep stretch in the opposite side of my neck. So I might just stay here. I might not even move while it kind of softens around the fasciator. But then I might start to rock just a tiny bit. The smaller the movement to start gives you a better idea of what you're working with. It's like, you don't want to over season right away. If you're cooking, you know, if you're making something, you don't put all of the seasons in at the beginning. You season as you go so it doesn't end up over seasoned. So it's the same thing with fasciating. We don't want to move around too much. We might miss the subtleties of the minute movements. So keep it small. Feel that tissue, feel that fluid that you're inspiring into those tissues, and then listen for any messages that might be coming through the fibers, from the fibers of your being. And as we're rolling the lat, the triceps, even rolling forward onto the pecs, we're getting this amazing upper body release. This is, you know, I've been in body work for nearly 20 years now. And my neck and shoulders always bother me, and everybody else's neck and shoulders always bother them. And we go and we work those shoulder tissues, the traps, the rhomboids, the back, everything gets blamed on the traps and the lat and the rhomboids. So my shoulders hurt, my neck hurts. It's obviously their fault, right? That is not the case. And this is something I myself struggle remembering, even though I've been working on body for 20 years, that this spot right here is a magic button release for our neck and our shoulders. Like just right now, the opposite side of my neck is getting such a major stretch and I'm feeling all of this relief, but I'm not even there. I'm working my armpit on the other side of my body. How crazy, because it's all connected. And this push me, pull you type scenario where my armpits are stabilizing the big muscles that are working, and those big muscles are overworking because they kind of like to do that, and then my little stabilizer muscles don't like to do that. So the balance is off. And when I remember to go and visit these smaller stabilizing muscles and work into my lats and my triceps, my traps start to release. And so I can get relief without punishing the parts that are in pain. So this is a concept. This is something pretty important. If you have pain somewhere in your body, going directly and hammering at that pain might not really be effective. It's like kicking a baby that's crying. You wouldn't do that. It's crying, so it certainly doesn't want to be kicked. You're going to make it cry more. So what you can remember to do is, if it's crying, what does it need? If a baby is crying, it needs to be fed or changed or held or given nice things. It certainly doesn't need to be kicked. So if your body is crying, what does it need? Does it need water? Maybe it does. Maybe it needs to be hydrated. Does it need food? Maybe it does. Maybe it needs better food. Maybe it needs more fresh greens and nutrition. Maybe it just needs to be held. Maybe it needs a hug, which is definitely true. But most likely it needs another part to be needed so that it can release its load, so it can relax a little bit and not work so hard. So we'll keep working this armpit, but we'll also bring it into the tricep, rolling from the elbow to the armpit. Here we have a dynamic lever, so we can bend the elbow and release and compress and stretch. We can keep it extended. And then we can roll backwards and forwards into the pec space, and even roll into that lat space where the roller is directly underneath the nipple line, and roll back and forth. So you can roll a little bit on your rib cage, just keeping your head in your support. It's a dynamic rib cage. It's supposed to be mobile. So as you roll back and forth, breathing, expanding. This also is a great way to release neck pain. And this position, you can pull the breast tissue down and get deeper into the pec. As you roll forward, maybe even scooch up and down a little. I'm rolling the outside edge of my pec major, maybe even a little bit into the pec minor, which is also great relief for the neck. I mean, your head is only attached. I mean, your head is actually attached by quite a few muscles, but when you have neck and shoulder pain, it's not just because of the neck and the shoulders. Sometimes it's the chest, sometimes it's the hips, sometimes it's everything else, and not just that area. So really think about that when you're working. It's all connected. All right, let's roll off of that side, and I like to give it a nice stretch in the opposite direction. Just give it a little extra love and affection. Whew. And then we'll switch sides. Now normally my class is a little bit quicker than what we're doing now, but I mean, I have the time, so I'm taking my time. And I thank you for joining me if you're doing this in virtual world or watching the replay. Hopefully you are also taking your time to find new places to release, and you're really enjoying your work. Never forcing it. I'm not forcing you to do this, am I? No. You're doing it because you love your body, and your body needs you to be needed. Your body needs you to need your body. And your fascia certainly needs you to need your fascia, because you wouldn't, if you want your body to last a long time, as we should want to live and thrive for as long as possible, we need to take care of it. So I tell my horse people out here in Nevada, we have a lot of people with horses, and maybe You can think of your own pets if you don't have horses, or maybe you ride bikes, or you have big toys. If you rode your horse, or if you walked your dog and you both got really, really sweaty, and your hair was matted, and you just looked a mess, and your horse was just worked to the bone. It just lathered and sweaty and just felt really good to get worked. But you wouldn't leave it like that. You wouldn't leave your horse all sweaty and matted. You wouldn't leave yourself all sweaty and matted. You would take a shower, you would clean yourself, and then you would clean your horse. You would take the saddle off, and you would wash him, and you would brush his hair, and you would make him feel all pretty and taken care of and loved. And that's what our tissues need. When we play, when we work, when we use our body every day, of course we take showers, and of course we feed ourselves well, but we also need to take care of that interconnected tissue. We need to squeeze it and love it. And if you get massage, you know how important that massage is to you monthly or every other week, or if you're lucky enough, every week. I mean, I'm not even that lucky, but if you are awesome, you look forward to that time where your tissues are being taken care of, because your body feels so much better when you do. So this is an important part of our self-care, this wringing out the tissues, this squeezing the wastewater out so we can make room for clear water, for fresh water, as we roll up to the tricep. This is so important. You are cleansing yourself from the inside, and not only are your tissues being hydrated, you're attending to those feelings. You're visiting them. Even if you're not letting them go, at least you're visiting them, and you're acknowledging the fact that you have feelings and sensations, and that the more you come to your mat to work, the more you come to the Fascianator to roll, the more you feel and the better you get at processing those feelings. Your body will get better at processing feelings the more you take care of it. The more often you fascianate, the more often you roll, the better you're going to get at it, and the better your body is going to release. You can do this at least once a week. Maybe you join us on Fridays at 4:30. Maybe you do it on your own, but I promise you, the more you do attend to your tissues and their issues, the better you will feel. So I'm so glad you've joined us for our session today. You are going to feel great afterwards. I know I will. So let's take that roller back into the armpit, prop up our head, lift the chest, and put it right at nipple line, and rock forward and back. Maybe even moving the breast tissue out of the way so you can roll forward onto the pec. There's a nice little knot right at the side of the breast tissue and right above the nipple. Oh, deep into that pec. This is a major one if you have any rotator issues. And if you're having any trouble being in this position, a great way to modify is to bring the arm forward and maybe even place a block or a pillow underneath your head, or you can take this to the wall. In fact, let's roll off of that armpit, give ourselves a little stretch do, and then I'll show you some techniques on the wall. So we can do our armpit stuff here on the wall. You can just lean into it. My arm is perpendicular, or I can bring it down to my side. And now I'm just kind of leaning into the wall, rocking back and forth. Fascianator is perpendicular. No, well, it's on the wall. It's in some shape on the wall. It's right here. But it's about shoulder height, just underneath my shoulder, and I'm just planting my feet into the ground, and I'm rolling back and forth. I can also rock up and down, or roll up and down. I can rock back and forth, roll up and down, rock and roll. And now I'm going to take it above the shoulder, and I'm going to put my trapezius on it, and I'm going to lean at a diagonal from the outside leg all the way into that shoulder, and I'm going to roll onto that trap. And if you're in any situation like myself, I have a very large knot in both my trapezius because they like to overwork. They constantly are working too hard, and so far I haven't quite made the connection to stop doing that, but the more I fascinate, the more I spend time here, the more I learn about all of those feels and how to control that urge to overwork. So again, I am on top of my trapezius. I'm not in my neck. I could turn my chin to face the fascinator and away, and I'm working all of that upper shoulder and lower neck area. So play around with this. If you're feeling like you're rolling on your neck, maybe stand a little bit further away. That leg closest to the wall can be bent, and that leg furthest away from the wall stays kind of straight, and then we pivot. And really, if you think about it, if you just place the fascinator on your shoulder, that's the area we're working, and then I would just lean into the wall, and that fascinator stays in the same place. This can be quite intense. Sometimes makes my eyes cross. And did you see that big lurch, that lump that I rolled over, my log? So I'm going to switch sides, starting with my deltoid, kind of rolling up and down. My shoulder is, or the fascinator is underneath my shoulder. This is kind of a bad angle. You can't really see me very well, but I'm just giving it a little bit of a roll on the deltoid. And then I'm going to place that shoulder underneath the fascinator, kind of set it on my shoulder, and then set the fascinator on the wall. I'm at that angle, pressing the diagonal from the outside leg as I roll back over the log and then roll forward. Now if I want, I can just lean and compress and move my head around. Gives me a stretch as I compress. Remember that compression and stretch. Stretch and compress. Ooh, such good stuff here. This one is always a delight. Oh. And I could probably spend all day here. But we shall move on, and you can come back to this spot anytime. As we're going to finish it up, we're going to use the wall some more. We're going to lean our tush back on the wall, place that roller about mid-back, scoot a little bit forward, and sit into a kind of a wall sit. I'm going to cross my arms, rotate to one side, and roll up and down my back. So this is a really kind and gentle way to roll up and down the spine, rocking to one side or the other, but never rolling directly on the spine. Working that corridor between the shoulders and the spine. That's why I'm hugging myself tight so those shoulder blades open up. And since my legs are tired from my workout today, I'm not going to do that very long, so I'm going to bring it down to my low back, and I'm just going to shift back and forth, working that space above the hips, in between the ribs, just gently working those QLs and the deep spinal muscles real gently here. And then I'm going to come down to the floor. We're going to do our last couple of spots in the neck and in the right below the skull. So I'm going to take my arm down, thread that roller between my shoulder and my neck like a violin, and then I'm going to brush my neck along that fascinator like a kitten on a leg, just rubbing, not a whole lot of pressure in the neck, but rubbing all the way to the back of the skull, right where the jaw, the mastoid process of the skull meets the neck, and then bringing my chin forward and drooling over my fascinator because I'm so nice and refreshed and relaxed. And then I would spend more time here if I had the time, but I'm starting to realize that this is going a little long, so I'm gonna kind of breeze through this one, spend more time here if you have it. But in the meantime, we're gonna switch onto our back, keep that fascinator underneath the skull, right at the notch of our skull, that occipital notch, and then I'm gonna keep pushing that roller up towards that notch with my thumbs. Come flat on my back, maybe shift my hips to come neutral, tuck my chin, and then I'm gonna rock my head to the left, working that area, that same area that we were kind of in with our sternocleidomastoid, fascinating, that neck fascinating, the kitten on a leg fascinating, and now I'm rolling the back edge of the neck and the skull. Tucking the chin, maybe working the eyes back and forth. Your eye movement's really connected to this area. Again, smaller movements are best to feel into that tissue. And then I'm going to lift my head, turn it to the other side, drop my chin, and then work that right side of my occipitals. Because I didn't do my SCM before I did this side, it's a little bit tighter. Good to know. And then I'll switch sides, put my right arm out, thread that fascinator underneath my right side of my neck and my chin. And then like a kitten on a leg, just working into that tissue of the throat and the neck. Always being gentle here. Always working within that sensation of release rather than forcing ourselves, allowing ourselves to open up. And then just because we can, working a little bit in the jaw, and then ending our class finally, coming onto our back again, tucking the chin, and maybe feeling both sides of the occipitals. This time I might even add my knees, draping them side to side like a windshield wiper to feel that connection from the top of my spine all the way down to the bottom of the spine. And feeling that full body connection. We've rolled the whole body. So it's time to connect the upper and the lower, the back to the front. And finally coming to rest. Feeling that sensation of fluidity and fresh fascia. And then just letting our body relax into its fluid space, coming to stillness, laying the whole body on the floor, released, refreshed, rehydrated, and hopefully feeling a little rejuvenated. Of course, you can stay here for as long as you like. The video will end and you will maybe still be there feeling fluid and relaxed. Or maybe you'd like to join me by bringing your knees up to your chest, rocking side to side. And then gently rocking over to one side. Then coming up to seated. I like to end our practice like I would a yoga practice. Thank you for joining me. Your attendance is appreciated, and your presence is always a gift. So thank you. Thank your body. I hope you feel fascinating, and I hope you continue to get needy, stay fluid, and facilitate your well-being. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Aloha.